Come to order. It is Monday, May the 23rd, 2022. 9 o'clock in the morning, and the Kerr County Commissioners Court is now in session. Remind everybody to turn your cell phones to silent or off. And the next thing we do on first of every agenda, the regular meetings, is we have public input. We have a couple of people that want to address the court today. We ask that this be on a topic that is not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, we request that you wait until that agenda item is called. And with regard to the length of time, we try to limit it to 3 minutes with some latitude, but try to keep it fairly brief. So with that, I know we've got a request here from Diane McMahon. Oh, prayer pledge. Forgot. Mr. Blue, lead us in prayer pledge.
Lord, it's obvious we need your guidance, and we ask for that. If there's ever been a time our country needed your guidance, this certainly qualifies, maybe more than ever since its founding. We ask that you would guide our minds, our hearts, and this meeting for the glory of our Lord, for the benefit of our neighbors and friends. We ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Okay, now we'll call for public input. We've got Mr. McMahon and Mr. Guerrero have signed up to speak today. If you would, go to the podium, please.
Good morning, Judge Kelly and Commissioners. A quick question about access to our county park when the archaeological field school is held. I think it's a great idea. I'm glad they like it and they're coming back. But last year, nobody else could get in the park, and I hope that maybe there's an arrangement where the public can come and go, especially to the back where the dog park is. So I just wanted to ask where we stand with that.
Well, we can't give any input. See, this is input. We received it, but we can't answer anything.
Okay.
We'll
May
give
I
you concern.
request that you give consideration? I copied the verbiage from their website, and very briefly what they say, the highlighted part is Flat Rock Park is just downhill and adjacent to River Star Park, right along the river's edge. The park is not fenced, but we will be able to control vehicle entry through a gate. And I think what happened last year is the gate was closed, and those of us who are respectful of ordinances, signs, didn't go in. Perhaps if they could cordon off the area that they camp, that's great, just let the vehicles go through the back. But that's what I'm requesting, that there be a win-win for the school, which we're happy to have them here and host, but also keep the park available for the residents, because we really value getting in there. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Excuse me, what is your name?
Diane McMahon, MCMAHON.
And then the other person that had requested to speak was Kerr Guerrero.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. I'm Karen Guerrero. I'm with Kerr Pets Alive, and I wanted to give you a little update on what we've been doing lately as we continue to partner with Kerr County Animal Services, our county taxpayer-funded facility here in Kerrville. On May 14th, we did an incredible vaccination clinic. It provided free vaccinations to over 100 Kerr County residents. And the great news is we did 300 vaccines for those residents, and we also did 116 rabies vaccinations. We implanted over 100 microchips, which are with the help of the Kerr County Animal Services staff, which we really appreciated. And the great thing about those microchips is they are registered. They're co-registered with the owner as well as Kerr County Animal Services. So if any of those pets get out and end up at the shelter, they'll be able to contact their owner. We feel like that these public events are very supportive of our efforts and our mission to save Kerr County pets by providing resources for Kerr County pet owners. Another thing I want to point out is, as you may have heard, in the news is the 49 dog seizure that happened at a single property around May the 11th. We weren't given the exact date of that seizure. Kerr County Animal Services could not accommodate that large of a seizure, so an overflow facility had to be identified. Kerr Pets Alive worked with the county to set up the 4-H barn on the Ag Barn property on Highway 27. We want to thank the 4-H, Kerr County 4-H, for allowing us to do that, and the county also for allowing us to create an overflow property. With the incredible help of the Ag Barn staff, Kerr Pets Alive outfitted the barn with multiple kennels, fans, food, and water to house the animals there for the long haul. We weren't sure exactly how long that was going to last. Volunteers tended to the dogs there from 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 7 days. The person that led the effort is Karen Johnson. She's standing out. She's right here. Yes. We had a lot of great volunteers that came out of the cracks, and we hope that they're going to continue to serve with us. It was truly a valiant effort. And we also had a weekend adoption event as the other volunteers continue to help care for the 49 other dogs who were at the KCAS shelter. What did we learn from that? We learned that we really would like to revisit having weekend adoptions. There's no time for people to adopt animals at that facility. It's all during work hours, and it's not on the weekends, and we had a successful turnout on that Saturday. We also needed a new animal shelter that can accommodate large seizures and provide proper isolation. Kerr Pets Alive did treat some animals that were a little bit ill. Those large seizures, when they come in, they really, there could be animals that are unhealthy. They affect the normal animal population. So we were able to provide medical care, but going forward, that new animal shelter is really important to be able to house them and not affect the other impounded animals, and also provide proper isolation facilities. Another thing that I'd like to point out that I was going to have Brenda point out, which we're really proud about, is that tomorrow night we will receive the Kerrville Kindness Award from the City of Kerrville for our efforts with the Vaccination Clinic and providing services, and we're really excited about that, and so I'm mentioning that. But thank you for allowing us to continue serving Kerr County Animal Services and working together to save more Kerr County pets.
Well, I would just like to correct you. You said you've been a little busy. You've been a lot busy.
Yeah.
And it is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Anyone else from the public that would like to offer any input? Okay, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. Precinct 1.
Need some rain. Had a threat of rain, had a double rainbow, it was all beautiful, but
Urban Bandit one is going to stay on for a while, and we have a ESP 3 meeting tonight. Seems good. Appreciate it.
I want to reiterate, I want to thank Kerr Pets Alive, especially Karen and Guerrero for, I know we started communicating, one night when all those seizures were happening, and back and forth and working things out. I also want to thank Sean Gore, who was filling in for Reagan. Did a good job of trying to coordinate everything, but anyway, it was a group effort to make a very difficult situation work, and thanks to Kerr Pets Alive and all their volunteers that helped with that. And again, the last thing is congratulations to all the seniors at both Ingram, Tivy, Centerpoint, Comfort, OLA, Grace, any other private schools. There's quite a few of them. Most congratulations are this week, and congratulations to all those seniors.
I don't have much. I was hoping to wake up to rain from the forecast, but maybe it's just put off for a while. We'll see. I hope so. Anyway, we have an ESD meeting in number 4 tonight as well. But again, we just need rain.
Very well. Then we'll move on to the consideration agenda. First item is item 1.1, which is consider, discuss, take appropriate action to appoint Brenda Thompson as the Kerr County representative to the ACOG Area Agency on Aging, Alamo Senior Advisory Committee. We have Ms. Thompson. There she is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been on this, on this committee for about 2 or 3 years, and they have different levels of membership in it, where I'm a provider for the Dietert Center on the committee, and they have asked that we we have no one representing Kerr County technically on the aging committee. And so we just, we're checking to see about moving my provider status to a Kerr County representative status on the board. And just so you know, the ACOG is where we are able to get funding for our Meals on Wheels program and our congregate meals program. We get reimbursed about $400,000 a year based on our number of meals delivered and number of meals served. We get about 60% of our cost is reimbursed by ACOG. So it's important that Kerr County is represented on this board because we're able to make sure that we're at the table with a lot of that funding.
Well, as the Kerr County member of ACOG, I make a motion that we appoint Brenda to serve as our Kerr County representative for the Area Agency on Aging. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? We really appreciate what y'all do. Those in favor, raise your hand. You were it.
Thank you very much.
Keep up
I
the good
appreciate
work.
it. Thank you.
Move on to item 1.2. Consider, discuss, take appropriate action on a request from Community Council of South Central Texas, Inc., CCSCT, to approve a proclamation celebrating Community Action Month in May of 2022. Bobby, is it Dykey? Anyone here?
No, sir.
Maybe we'll pass on that. We'll go on to item 1.3, which is a presentation by Ryan, is it Wrights?
Right, you got it correct.
The Texas Parks and Wildlife regarding prescribed burning seminar scheduled on June 4th.
Good morning, Court, Commissioners, Judge Kelly. Get that going there. Appreciate the time to be in front of you this morning. Yes, sir, here just really to discuss with you or present to you an opportunity we have really to go through the discussion of prescribed fire and how it works in our community, how it affects our land, how our stewards use fire in this county, in the state. As you know, Kerr Wildlife Management Area has used prescribed fire for many years, many decades, and it's been an integral part of our land stewardship process and our natural resource communities, developing that land health and that land stewardship. Prescribed fire has been a part of that. Would you mind going to slide 2, or how do I? There we go. I brought a few slides with me just to kind of go through what we are as a wildlife management area. The Kerr WMA is part of a research and demonstration site acquisition by the Wildlife Division in Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, where we get to not only research wildlife, look at different effects and natural resources across the state of Texas, but look at land management practices, forage tools and techniques that affect land health, and then provide that information to landowners and land stewards on how to manage wildlife in the state of Texas. The Kerr WMA is a part of that process. Next slide. We get to study a lot of different things, and this collage of slides there just to look at just demonstrates the many things we do. Obviously, the Kerr Wildlife Management Area has been a part of whitetail deer research for many, many decades. We work on everything from deer to prescribed fire to invasive plants, endangered resources, all kinds of different things, and even today working on control techniques for feral swine. Next slide. Part of our mission Enroll is not only to develop these things, but to demonstrate them to the public, to meet the landowner at their gate, to develop wildlife management plans, but also host and provide seminars on our properties. Next slide. And one of those things that is close to our hearts, and again, they're an important part of our land management processes, is prescribed fire. Prescribed fire has been a part of this ecosystem for thousands and thousands of years, and as our communities develop and our county develops, urbanizes, as well as we learn and understand the function of weather and fire and fuels. We have to be adaptive and stay in tune with how to appropriately apply fire on our landscape, how to do so safely and appropriately for the benefits of our wildlife species and the safety of our public as well. Next slide. In doing that, there's fire prescriptions that we've developed over time, not only on state land, but with, next slide, with prescribed burn associations to cooperate with the communities out there in the state of Texas, as well as in Kerr County. Next slide. And our technology continues to improve as well, as well as our knowledge of fire prescriptions and the effects of fire with those plan management objectives and goals. A lot of technology and adaptations to yield good products on the landscape. Next slide. So this health and land health process that we utilize, not only in Kerr County on the management area, but that institution of land management, prescribed fire is a part of managing grasslands and brushlands in our state and in our county. Next slide. As we walk through time, as decades go by, as years go by, prescribed fire has been a part historically of our process and these ecosystems, and continues to be today. Next slide. Bottom line, there's a diverse system out there that we recognize, and you can click through those, sir. There's about 5 clicks. Whether it's brush management, keep going, cattle grazing systems, management of cattle grazing systems, next one, prescribed fire, public hunting resources, control of mouths and resources on the landscape. All these come together to produce a healthy land management product. Okay. Next slide. And we produce lots of products in doing so. You can click through those, whether it's grazing systems and cow-calf production, producing black-cat vireos, and increasing endangered resources on our landscape. The bottom line is everything's more or less related to those plants and the diversity of those plant systems. Next slide. Keep going. The last one I have here for you is just that demonstration of what happens when we don't do anything. And again, their prescribed fire is a part of that system. This is an experimental plot on the Kerr Wildlife Management Area. That's what it looked like in 1959. Since that point in time, there's been no cattle grazing, no prescribed fire, no deer, no management whatsoever. Next slide. And that's what it looks like today. So in the midst of all these things that I'm attempting to quickly present to you, prescribed fire is a part of that land management system, and we all have a role to play. You have a role to play as administrators. You're dedicated to your communities, as well as I have a role as a wildlife manager. And again, our position and role from the Wildlife Division is to provide information. To our land stewards, but also to our community. Next slide. And in doing so, I'm here just to invite you to a Prescriber Seminar on June 4th to be held from 1 to 5 p.m. at the Kerr Wildlife Management Area. This is that slide there just kind of goes through the handout. I think Commissioner Harris, you passed out some information on that. We'll be going through the legalities of fire and burning in Texas, which plays very close. It's very close to home in the roles you play here in the community, burn bans, etc., as well as how those legalities affect private landowners, what laws exist in Texas, and how we manage those things to apply prescribed fire on our landscape. Working with organizations, both from the Wildlife Division, what we provide to land stewards, as well as Prescribed Burn Associations. You'll hear from them as well. At the end of the day, we, of course, we'll go through some effects of fire, how we've learned on the Kerr Wildlife Area, some of those products, the how, when, not necessarily the what. This seminar is not intended to provide folks with the information on how specifically to burn or train somebody to burn, but go over the world of prescribed fire in Texas and how it's implemented in Kerr County, how it's implemented on private land, and where that community is with fire in Kerr County. So I officially invite you. I'm just here to invite you and say hi. I appreciate the time. Next slide. And we do, of course, have an agenda there. If you can make part of it, that'd be great. If you can make the whole thing, that would be great. This is a great networking event for the use of fire, both in our county and on private land and in state land. So again, thanks for the time. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Question, Brian?
Yes, sir.
If we can attend it, which I'll be out of town, so I know I can't attend it. Will you be able to email the presentations and some of that information out or have it available?
Yes, sir. I'd be more than happy to provide any information we can. Again, that's our role. We can do PDFs, emails, things like that. What I would invite you to do, if you can't make it, give me a call,
Okay.
and we can set that up, get some emails going, and just disseminate information however we can. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And the other item, I'm not sure if it's on the agenda or part of it, but we have I guess you call it a little bit of a unique system in Kerr County that the commissioners have authority to approve burn bans that have been previously approved by NRCS. Is that part of, are you all aware of that?
We're going to cover everything we can on the legality, both in burn bans and how it functions in counties, how it functions potentially in Kerr County, and how it functions in other counties as well. Dr. Morgan Treadwell will be there discussing how those burn bans work in different counties, as well as what are the laws in Texas. So,
Okay. We might get you, Jody, you print a copy of that court order that sets out our policy. It's a little bit different. It is state law.
Okay.
It's a little bit broader in certain situations.
That sounds good. Thanks for coming in, and I look forward to hopefully attending. I think it'd help all of us. And if we get this in the email form, we'll put it out to help spread the word.
And this is
The ones that
also-
need to come.
thank you, Commissioner Harris. This has also been disseminated and distributed to our volunteer
Okay,
departments
all right.
as well. Our fire chiefs in Kerr County have that. They've been invited as well. And again, there is a networking event. All kinds of different questions, Commissioner Letts, and concerns that we can cover. But the idea there is to get together and network and talk about these things from the history all the way through the legality.
Okay.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you very much.
guys. Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is 1.4, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to appoint a committee to address the 2023 annular eclipse and the 2024 total eclipse events. Jeff Thomas.
Morning, Judge, morning, Commissioners. I hadn't asked to have these put on the agenda, but I brought,
Welcome to
yeah, I understand. No, I brought it up at the last, one of the Commissioners' courts. I feel like we need some kind of a committee to work at marketing this, both eclipse events for the county. Just to kind of give you an idea, I've got a website here that Gillespie County has put up that we might be able to model something up that we can do similar to this.
Do you know the web
That's not
address?
it.
The airport.
That'd be welcome to talk about it.
Wrong direction on it.
I don't want to talk about 1.9 in one place. All right, so he's got it up here, but this is a website that Gillespie County has put up that they're basically trying to market the 2024 eclipse. They're marketing the total solar eclipse. I haven't noticed anything on the annular eclipse, but I haven't gone completely through their website. They've got Lady Bird Johnson Park there and some other things. So I just feel like this is something that the county needs to take advantage of and do something similar.
I guess my question is, how much do we want to advertise it? I mean,
I'm not so sure marketing is what.
Well, I mean, the
Managed.
deal is we're gonna have 150,000 people here. And one of the things that several of the other jurisdictions that I've talked to have said is you need to try to keep these people here as long as possible. Have some events later on the same day as the event to make sure that they give them something to stay a little bit longer
Right.
for, because when 150,000 people try to leave here, it's going to be pandemonium if they try to leave all at once. So just basically some afternoon and evening events on the 20, on the 8th actually. Might be something we can take a look at.
Well, I think, it's gonna be a huge strain on every business in town, whether it be restaurants, fuel, everything else. You get an influx of people like that.
Well, it's not just the strain on here. This is going to be a moneymaker for the
Well,
county. It's going to be
that's what I
a
was
big
getting to.
moneymaker for everybody in the county. Restaurants, everybody.
Any extra events might help. Get an extra $1 or $2 to stay here in Kerr County.
We've got
Well,
all
really-
the parks here, the RV park.
People need to be put on notice. We don't necessarily have to market, but local folks need to know that it's coming and you
We'll
can
have-
capitalize.
Yeah, right, we'll have those notifications out. City's already has a committee on it. I just think that the county should work with City of Ingram, City of Kerrville, West Kerr Chamber of Commerce, and come up with some ideas for something
Sure.
for us to do.
I think Dove should head that up.
I'm not a marketer, I'm an emergency management guy. I just want to know where all these events are going to be, so we'll know where to have our resources ready for.
I think one of the most logical things we need to kind of look at and visit with Jake Williams
Without doubt.
is the event center, because that is a venue that they could do some events, and there's space, open, clear space out there to view.
The park next to it,
And park,
rodeo grounds, all that.
all that area, there's a good spot for it, but we need to look at quantity of people to allow in, how they're gonna, one of the things we're really look at is county facilities, how we manage the population of the people on those facilities. We don't have that many parks, but Ingram Park, boat ramp,
Well,
we don't wanna get,
Flat Rock.
but we don't wanna get so many people crammed in these spots that we have an emergency situation. We need to figure out how we're gonna regulate the numbers and stuff.
What it's gonna end up being like, and I'm a skeptic on how many people are gonna show up here, but it'd be like, the crowd that shows up at the Methodist Church for 4th of July and the one that shows up over here and on top of the parking garage. You're gonna have those in a lot of different places. And so people tend to figure out where they can park, where they can't park, and whether they can drag a picnic basket that far and all that themselves, without being told a lot of it. But people that are unfamiliar with our territory need to know where it's okay to go. And so how do you coordinate that other than signage during that time period?
You could do something like reservations, the big field out there, you could do reservations to a certain number, you don't get into the event center property without a ticket in that area. There's things like that that would probably be helpful to at least regulate those areas. You got the Little League fields across the road, that you have to be careful with those are county properties, at the same time, we don't want the fields destroyed.
well, people are gonna start researching what to do here. And, we got Lisa here that we can get some stuff on our website, because somebody come from Little Town, Minnesota, they're gonna look up what else is there to do, or where can I go in Kerr County when we get there. And so Lisa, I think, will be key to putting that message out on our website as well as Facebook, and, depending on what we decide to do with
It'd be good opportunity
Bernice,
for the county
Kansas.
to dip our toe into geofencing. You guys can look that up.
What?
Geofencing.
Some of the locations that I've talked to, like Gage County, Kansas, where they, it's Gage County, Nebraska, Bernice, Nebraska, had 32,000 people show up in their little town, 25,000. Carbondale, Illinois, Southern Illinois University of Carbondale, opened up their football stadium. They had 15,000 people in the stadium, 15,000 people out in the parking lot. So there's a lot of folks that show up. Where else was Yellowstone, just outside the park in town there, had a porta potty on every corner. So there's a lot of folks that show up for these things. So
That means they were selling beer.
they were selling.
No, it seems, you know, I think that to me there probably should be some sort of a county committee to look at county facilities. But there also needs to be a coordination with almost a second committee with city, probably Shriner University,
Well,
county, and, you know, it's almost two different things. You find out what they're doing, what the city.
and I think we're kind of double dipping in that area. The city has a committee that's looking at marketing this, and also the emergency management part. And then I've been running these meetings, and I've had Shriner University. I've got the camps, the summer camps coming to this next meeting. TxDOT, TDM, all kinds of folks. So we're kind of crossing over those lines there. Both of us are actually having the same groups. I think even Brenda with the Dietrich Center is going to be at both meetings. So
It is going to be helpful to know what the other people are doing, keeping information available.
Right.
Anything else?
That's all I have, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 1.5, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to replace the resolution approved by Court Order 38987 related to the Hazardous Mitigation Assistance Grant with updated resolution. Joel Pavement.
This is in regards to and it's been a while since this has come before you, the grant that GrantWorks is working on for the generators for the volunteer fire department. What has happened is they have been looking for funding through FEMA and other sources, through the disaster relief and other things of that nature, but it has not been proven cost effective or recommended by TDM. At this point, TDM is recommending that we go for their 5% cost initiative funding grant opportunity. And in order to do that, they reviewed everything and are ready to hit submit. However, they did notice that on our court order 38987, it has a 25% matching, and the 5% cost initiative program only requires a 10% matching. So we would like to amend that first court order with a new resolution to say the 10% matching and not be locked in at the 25% matching.
Seems like a no-brainer to me.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second to approve changing the Hazardous Mitigation Assistance Grant to a 5% cost initiative grant, which will require 10% matching.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you for catching that.
GrantWorks caught that.
Okay.
but thank you.
Well, they paid for themselves.
And we go to the 9:30 docket, item 1.6, consider, discuss, take appropriate action regarding the proclamation for Mark Moser. Mary?
I'll do my updates after this. Stay in order. It was 10 years ago next month, I randomly rented Tom Moser at a gas station, both Tom and our old farm vehicles, and I recognized him from being, his picture was on the wall at the airport, and the discussion ensued about hangars. And I had been involved at the airport board in Iowa where we just built a dozen hangars, and sort of explained to him about 10% matching funds, and he said, "You're coming to the next board meeting." So he wrote me in, and a couple weeks later I was at the board meeting and talked about the process, and we found over $700,000, and I found myself stuck on the new hangar committee. So my first 4.5 years with the airport, I was on committee or volunteer status. The next 6 months, I was interim, replaced Steve King, and the last 5 years, I was more efficient. So, about ready to go in the has-been club of essence. Actually, I'm going to go back to committee status with very limited function, which I'll discuss during the updates. But during this time, I've seen a lot of changes. Were involved safety, improved economics. But I don't want to give my current team, it's more about my team than me. I mean, Mary and Carol and Jason, the full-timers, and the current board. We've always had a good board. There's some really good leadership back in around 2010, 11, there's the restructuring with some fantastic leadership during that process. They went through a lot of growth pains, and they got started in the right direction. So there was a lot of momentum. And that's when the interlocal agreement came about, which was a really good thing, you know, the history on that. And the thoughts back then, from what the people involved told me, they decided to run it more like a business. And economically it worked out, just strategically it worked out. I think we have a better strategic board now than we've ever had, and it's only getting better. It's really not about one person, it's really about the team. And you all are part of that team, as you know. You're owners, and I really appreciate all the support. Your airport IQ is higher than most. I appreciate that. My goal all along is that the owners behave and think like they own it, ownership mentality. And I think we've taken some big steps in the right direction. So I really appreciate the support. I appreciate the continued support. I'd like to see things you're involved with continue to grow in the right direction. And I want to thank my wife for backing me, and Mary and Stephen. I thank you for carrying it on. He'll do a great job. So I want to thank you all.
Well, Mark, on behalf of Kerr County, I want to make a motion that we approve a resolution recognizing your contribution to the community by serving on the Kerr County Joint Air Force Board. And that resolution would be, whereas Dr. Mark Mosier has served on the Kerr County Joint Air Force Board for 5 years, and whereas while serving on the board, the airport code minimum standards were rewritten, and whereas as board president, he helped to facilitate the signing of an interlocal agreement between the city of Kerrville and Kerr County, and whereas while serving as board president, his concern for the safety of the airport prompted the installation of deer-proof perimeter fencing and automatic gates to prevent deer from entering the airport and posing a danger to aircraft. Whereas, as a member of the board, he worked with the city and county to develop a strategic plan for the airport for 2019 through 2023. And while his leadership, under his leadership, he prompted 2 annual meetings held with members of the airport board, Kerrville City Council, and Kerr County Commissioners Court, and with members of the community. And he continues to work to attract more new companies to the airport. Now therefore be it resolved that the Kerr County Commissioners Court does hereby thank and recognize Dr. Mark Mosier for his dedication, leadership, management, and expertise, and valuable assistance in making Kerrville Kerr County Airport one of the best general aviation airports in Texas and a valuable and important asset to Kerr County. With that, I'd like to present this resolution to you, and everybody else, well, we can present it in the side.
Thank you, Mark, for all your time and all your work.
With this, congratulations. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, give it back to me.
Wait for
I got to get other signatures on it. Okay, now you can do your update.
Okay.
Need a motion in a second.
Got a motion, need a second?
Second.
Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners. I mentioned briefly that I'm going to stay in the saddle a little bit longer. I started out my first 4.5 years as a representative of the airport, non-board member on committee, and I'm going to maintain some transition in that area. And I'll be brief. You all are pretty familiar with what's going on out there. So I'm going to talk about 2 things you may not be familiar with. The last 2 weeks has been a lot of things happening with Mooney aircraft that I've been involved with working, and Mary, and we've been involved with working with Mooney the last 2 years and 5 months. 2 years and 5 months ago, the ownership, there was a dramatic change of ownership at Mooney and a dramatic reduction in employees. And as of a couple weeks ago, there's been a change in financial partners and a new management strategy. Same CEO, going to stay there. And this change is going to take approximately 12 to 18 months. It's going to be a transition in profitability and ownership. And a lot of things I can't go into detail on, but at a high level, this is a really, really good situation. Now, people always wonder about the economics. What's that mean to employees? Because they were down to around 20 employees. Well, in the last couple of weeks, they've hired more employees. We're up to 35 now, and they continue to hire. So that's a good thing. The goal is to maximize the potential, to bring back the maximum potential. The goal is to make the business recession-proof, and this is done through the new guidance of the new financial partners. And the goal is also, I got these numbers yesterday from the higher-ups, in the next 18 months on the long side to have 130 employees. So there's been a lot of ancillary discussions, as you might well imagine. So let's see about Mooney. About a year ago, Mary and I met with a fellow named Bob Rice. And Bob Rice was born in Texas, I think El Paso. And he started a company, a family company, in California called Rice Aircraft Services. And they started out servicing, maintaining, repairing 3 major brands of helicopters, the Bell, Huey, and Dornier. And this business has progressed. And in a nutshell, where they get most of their business from is by buying helicopters that Tier 1 governments are done with, such as the United States. They'll buy, the United States moves on to the next latest, greatest, better helicopter, and they have all these helicopters that they're done with. Well, Bob buys those, and he'll restore them to like new condition. New engines, new everything, new paint, full new glass, avionics, makes them like new. He'll buy about 100 of them. And in California, he had about 60 employees. And they'll take them apart, put them in boxes, ship them to South America or the Philippines, Argentina, some country that may not be at the level of ours. And they'll send a team down there, 10 to 12 people. They put them together, test fly them, check them out, money's wired, done. Currently, he's buying aircraft from Germany, which is also a Tier 1 company, our country. And Mary, I give Mary a lot of this credit. She really painted a picture about how good Kerr County is to work with, how much they want to embrace, new businesses. Because to be honest, he was rubbed wrong in California. Not only does it cost 3 times more to do business in California, but he really didn't agree with what the taxes are going for. He didn't mind paying the taxes, didn't agree with what they're going for. And California, as you can imagine, is the state's hard to work with, the county is hard to work with. We painted a picture that it's not the way it works here in Texas. It's definitely not the way it works in Kerr County. He heard that like that and told me that was the major reason he chose Kerr County. We did not have the exact real estate we needed for him inside the fence of the airport. He purchased approximately 8 acres adjacent to the airport, right next to Flying Diesel. You can see it from Airport Loop Road. You can see it better from the neighborhood road behind as you turn on the airport, on the neighborhood road before you get to our terminal. Turn right, go back, you look down, you see helicopters and things that are around. He has moved. He still has a few more things to move. The business is here. He currently has about 12 employees. He plans to take it back up to 60. Great guy, great company, established. I'm very excited about it. These are good jobs. So that's all I have to report it now. But I'm going to state, per Mooney's request, I'm going to stay in the cell as representative, appointed contract, and over the next 18 months or so, and try to help them as best I can, report to you, whatever, and see this transition through for the benefit of our community.
Good, thank you. Thank you. The next item we had on the agenda we're going to pass until after the break. That has to do with the interlocal agreement. We can do that after the break.
I'm sorry?
We're going to do that one after the break. Okay. So I'm going to move on to item 1.9, which is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the updated row hanger projects, scope, funding, construction contract, and agent authorization. Mary Rohr.
Good morning, Judge Kelly and Commissioners. I'm here again today to discuss our two projects on the slides, and I've got 3 items on the agenda, so I wanted to kind of walk you through all the different parts and pieces that we have going on. So, I'll just ask you to click them. Is that correct? Okay, cool. So as we discussed at the last meeting, we're working on a row hanger project that's identified on the pink star. Go to the next slide, please. And that's the designation of the row hanger units themselves. There are 4 units planned. When we went out to get bids for the contract, we actually segregated them into different parts and pieces. So the base bid of the general contract that's under consideration has a base bid of 2 units, an additive alternate of a 3rd unit, and an additive alternate of a 4th unit. So if you go into your staff report, you can see the different parts and pieces of how these are kind of put together. So we've got different options. At this point, we're pursuing the 4-unit option. The next slide, please. That's our proposed funding, and what we're working with on our funding, that it would be an aviation grant of about $600,000. The city of Kerrville and Kerr County would then contribute $150,000 apiece. We also have on the agenda here about obtaining the airport rescue grant. That's about $60,000, and then the airport would then fund the additional $241,000 for a $1.2 million project. So that's the big picture of the funding for the project. I wanted to talk a little bit about the grant that TxDOT has for us. They have, this is what's called a non-primary entitlement grant. So for you bank 4 years of $150,000 apiece. So we have $150,000 1 year that then accrues to the 2nd year, accrues to the 3rd year, and accrues to the 4th year for $600,000. We have the first grant A. The TxDOT has spent about $93,000 to prepare the plans that we went out to bid with, and we've got another probably $20,000 or $30,000 worth of reimbursement that we can apply to the first grant. The second grant, which is the grant in the middle, is $150,000. That grant, for us to get funding, we need to get paperwork into TxDOT by May 31st, or we may or may not be able to obtain the grant for those funds. So we're at risk of $150,000 and then whatever's remaining of that A grant and B grant. So I'm thinking about $170,000, maybe $180,000, which is about 15% of this $1.2 million project. Might be at risk depending on the timing. And then we also have to get all the paperwork into them in time for them to meet their grant requests. So FAA has a cutoff time, which they've extended a couple times, so we're working off of this extension, but we do have a risk of not obtaining that middle part. And then we have $300,000 where the cutoff dates are in April of 2023 and April of 2024. But those next 2 we should be able to obtain. So I think we should be able to, hopefully between all of our pieces and parts, we should at least be able to get at least $450,000, got the number somewhere here, but we are at risk of not receiving about $150,000 of one of those tranches of money unless we're able to get all of our paperwork in and approved and submitted and signed off by everybody before the FAA closes down the grant, and it's expected sometimes there in June. So that's our risk on the hangar project.
What are we supposed to do?
I guess I'm waiting for some direction on the funding and whether or not that's going to be able to come together. That's where I'm.
The interlocal agreement will get to right after the break, and that will allow for moving the funds around.
We had already discussed this, approved it,
right.
Yeah.
So we just need to move it.
Right.
Okay.
So the movement goes on there, and I'm not exactly sure where it all ended up, so I was just kind of giving you all that basic background of what the parts and pieces are.
Yeah, I noticed though, if you don't get the grant, that it costs us an extra $1,000, $500 a piece. Was that just you were rounding it off?
Yeah, that probably is rounding it off.
Okay.
Tanya gives me a hard time about rounding things up. Rounding things down, so she's correcting me on those.
But what if TxDOT doesn't approve the 150,000 that's at risk? What's the plan?
Then, so in other words, this is kind of where I was, over the weekend, I've been trying to figure out where we're all going to end up on different parts and pieces. And as you know, projects basically sort of have different levers we can work with. So we know that we have funding, which we've identified. We've got some time constraints, and then we've got the scope. So in other words, if our timing doesn't work as well as we had hoped and presented to y'all, and we're not able to obtain it, I think then we start pressing the other levers, which is the scope of the work and the funding, or else adjust the timing of when the project would start. In other words, if there's things that we can't move around, then we might need to go to whatever the fiscal year of 2023.
But in 2023, don't we get another 150,000?
No, we've got, it's already allocated. Those four grant years have already been allocated. So that's the piece, is that if we can get that together and get everything funded, get everything put together, we'll work our way through. But again, this still has a lot of different parts and pieces that.
So basically, we submit it by the 31st and then see what happens.
See what happens, and hopefully we can get all this stuff approved. And again, if it needs to make the muster through all the TxDOT folks as well as the FAA for approval of that funding piece as well.
Now, Mary, when does the work have to be completed, provided that all the funding is there?
So the work isn't, we have a contract, again, parts and pieces in the project. It talks about, the contract was, and I haven't gotten into the depths and the detail of it, but again, in your package, we went out to bid, and it has the work scope included 180 calendar days to procure. In other words, because we're also concerned about the ability to get metal buildings, ability to get all sorts of parts and pieces. So once the contractor has confirmed to us that they've got all the processes that they need to get going on, they would give us notice. And it can be earlier, but they've at least got 180 days to do that. And then the actual construction time itself is 150 days.
So there's really not a deadline. Most grants come with something like that. There's a window of time. But because of the supply chain issues, it could be anywhere.
Well, it needs to be that, so the next grant is due, so we basically worked our first grant, which closes, has closed and pretty well we're just kind of finishing up the last little bit. The second grant now closed here, end of May. And then the next grant would then close next April 2023, and then the next grant would close 2024.
That's for application, that's not for completion.
That's for making sure we submit our costs in, yes.
So what I was trying to find out is, provided that all of our T's crossed, all the I's are dotted,
yeah,
when the work must be completed within the parameters of that grant. So really, that's kind of open-ended, it sounds like.
For us, I would say it would be we have to show them that we've spent $150,000 not already submitted by April 2023, and then another $150,000 by April 2024 is what I understand. I'll find out. But that's the difference. Yeah.
I see Mark shaking his head.
Yeah, it's about expenses.
I'm watching Steve.
Yeah, it's about us submitting things.
$150,000 a year.
Yeah.
And drop $150,000 a year. We have to spend that. So if it's a 1.2 project, we spend 600 of them good.
Yeah.
So it's every year. They can only put 600,000 in the bucket.
And again, when we came to y'all, we knew we had some tight timelines. We were surprised that, right there at the first of the year, TxDOT said, hey, y'all can take a chance, see if y'all can do it yourselves. So we've been working pretty hard on trying to pull all this together. So again, hope for the best. Have a contingency plan in second place if it all doesn't come together. But yeah, we've come up against the end of the timeline. So my free time is over, so to speak. We need to make some decisions on whether it's an additional. If we need more time, then it might be an adjustment of scope, which might be adjustment of costs. So that's the parts and pieces of the timeline. So kind of a three-legged stool.
I'm actually trying to get it all.
And everyone has.
And we've been working with Stuart on how to just get some materials on site so we can send invoices.
Yes.
The first chunk. That's, it may not happen, but I think it's worth trying. We're going to do it anyway.
Sounds pretty iffy to me.
County Attorney, if she has a question.
Yes.
I think that you should wait to vote on this item until after you take up the interlocal agreement so that the modifications to that agreement, specifically as they relate to the movement of the funding.
With this agreement, that's part of this motion regardless, because the city has to approve the interlocal before it's in effect anyway. So. But, on this part of it, to me, the action is, and I make a motion to approve the amended, approve the updated road hanger project scope funding, construction contract, and authorize the airport or manager to execute any document with the text on. So that's the same. This is subject to the interlocal agreement being approved by both the city and county.
That's a long motion.
Well, we've got a motion and a second. But is the county attorney saying that we should put off voting on this until after we address the interlocal agreement?
Yes, that's what I said.
But it's subject to both of the approval, that our voting approval of the interlocal agreement doesn't make any difference. The city has to approve it as well.
That's true.
So it's subject to,
Say that again?
he made the motion subject to that approval.
Right.
So
I
that
think
covers
you're
that.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? Those abstained? I'm confused. I don't like to vote, but I'm confused. We'll move on to item 1.10. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on the request to apply for TxDOT Airport Rescue Plan grant. The floor.
Again, we've, per the interlocal, the airport needs to provide requests to the city and a county to execute any grant funding agreements. The city already approved the grant funding agreement, so now it's just a matter of y'all agreeing to the grant funding agreement, which is, again, attached in your package. And I believe, Heather, you've reviewed it, and we've all kind of looked at the grant itself and the requirements of the interlocal.
Move for approval.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the TxDOT Airport Rescue Grant as presented. Any discussions? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. And then the final airport item here is 1.11. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the 2022-2023 airport operations and capital budgets. The floor.
Maybe two slides and see what we go. There we go. All right, here we go. This is, again, in the interlocal agreement, the section in the interlocal regarding budgets and getting approvals of budgets basically require that the airport board shall submit the board budget to both the city and the county no later than June 1st for y'all's consideration, no later than September 30th. So in other words, our goal here today is to walk you through our proposed budget. We'll be doing another review of it at the airport board meeting next week, and we've provided a similar, we'll be providing similar information to the city. And then you all need to be able to adjust your budgets as Tanya's working on her capital budgets and her incremental pieces of part of the budget, as well as the city. So again, we hope that y'all can take a look at the budget, let us understand, give us some feedback on what the different parts and pieces are. And our intent is for Julie with the city and Tanya and I to again meet mid-July and make sure we've all got everything put together with respect to your capital plans and your human resources costs. Because right now, we're sort of made it some assumptions. We know we don't have all the insurance numbers together. COLA increases as well, but this is at least a shot of what we hope to achieve here in our airport budget. So the first page of the airport budget that I have up on the screen is
Mary, do you have a copy of the operating budget?
yeah,
It's up right.
it's on the screen, or
I've got a copy of the judge, he didn't have one in the document.
here. Sorry, I did not bring a full copy of it all, so I just have it on the screen. I'm sorry.
I've looked at it.
Judge, I'm sort of like you. I brought all sorts of stuff, and I know I have it in here somewhere.
We're good.
We're good. All right. So the operating budget is, the first page of the operating budget is our revenues. So the revenues that we worked off of were basically taking a look at what our incomes, our expected incomes are from our proposed, all of our existing leases. And being as we were in sort of this inflationary period, it's very hard to judge what our income may be a year from now or 6 months from now for us to develop our budget. So we basically took a look at all of our income producing properties and then took a 6-month income look at that. In other words, what is it in February of 2022 where we are based on the February 2022 CPI index, what would our rents be in February of 2022? Because all of our different income producing properties all have CPIs at different times of the year. So it's kind of hard for us to actually figure out what our true income is going to be next year. So for all of our leases that are annual income of more than $10,000 annually, we then applied that February of 2022 income, that CPI income, to basically develop what our annual income will be for next year. So it was just trying to figure out a way to start, a way to get going on something that we all know how we got to where we got to on our income. So the income statement here assumes for a handful of our tenants the CPI index of 2022, and then basically what the income that we were receiving in February of 2022, which is an income of $487,420. So that's our estimated income for fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. The salaries and benefits assume a 2% COLA. Again, we're waiting to hear back from y'all of what you think your possible salary increases will be for next year, but this proposed estimate includes a 2% COLA, and then also has some best guess of information on the various different group insurance and retirements and workman's comp. And I know Jennifer's probably still a few weeks out from getting some of those numbers in there. So again, we'll work on adjustments on what those need to be based on what our actual costs will be as we get further into the year. That's why I'm saying we're all going to need to work together on this year. It's such a different year than any of the other years. We're just going to have to work our way through it. And then the salary and benefits here is $251,600, which is based on a 2% COLA. The next expenses are parts and pieces of expenses are $137,000 of just normal expenses that we have on our day-to-day work around the airport. So that's $137,520 for our expenses. Do you have any questions regarding benefits or COLA or some of our expenses?
What's this basic insurance line doesn't have much in it? What is that?
think that's the basic life.
Yes, life
What is
insurance.
it?
Basic
Life insurance, thank you.
That the county covers for the employees
That's it?
for $20,000 per person. Yes, like $522 a month.
This is
for-
in hundreds, that's $200?
It's $5.22 a month premium per employee.
And we like,
Times 3 employees, times 12 months.
Term insurance.
Okay, so it says basic insurance, that's what I was asking. What
It's
is
basic
it?
life.
Basic
Term,
life.
it's-
Basic term life.
That's what I wanted to know.
yeah, thank you. Okay, next page is then, this is the remainder of our expenses, which is then all the property insurance, liability insurance, various different legal professional services, and that's our utilities, a bit of contingency in there, alarms, propane, gas, sewer, all those good things, and that's $98,300. So if you add the three parts and pieces, the first two on the first page, the salaries and benefits, the supplies and repairs, and then this last line, the other utilities and things, that adds up to the $487,420, which then matches our revenue. So at this point in time, we are presenting to you a balanced budget between our revenues and expenses.
Balanced budget and no contribution required.
And no contribution. So I'll be working with Jennifer as changes occur with COLA. I'll be working with Tanya as changes reflect with respect to our incomes, or how we're all going to work on making sure we can obtain and stay within this balanced budget, but we'll probably all end up kind of taking another look at it here in July.
How long will it take to pay for the new hangers? How long will it be before they're paid for?
I have that somewhere. I'll find it for you.
Well, they'll be paid for right away. Are you talking about ROI?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, if you can think of it that way, you're not gonna like it. It's like, hey, what's our parks return for ROI? Tea hangers are not an ROI item. They're a part of a healthy airport.
But they pay for themselves eventually, is it 15 years? Is it
45 years.
45
I mean,
years.
it's not why we build them, like parks, you know, but it's more essential for a healthy airport.
I know they're not a moneymaker, but eventually they pay for themselves. So in this case, they'll have to be remodeled before they're ever paid for.
Probably. Maybe it's faster than that because we're getting some outside funding. from
The other
TxDOT.
things with the tea hangers or any hanger or out there's two other things that don't get calculated in the ROI directly. One, fuel purchases, we get a percentage of that, and the other is property tax.
It's the ancillary income you get from it.
I know it attracts people, I get that.
Well, that $18.6 million that the TxDOT said we brought into community in 2018, that's part of that. It's the ancillary income that comes because of their, like you were saying, fuel sales was one small example. Businesses that come to town, I wouldn't be here if they didn't have hangers out there, and businesses that come to town because of it.
It's my other comment is, and I've mentioned this to the airport board several times, is it's remarkable how much the cost of these projects increase with TxDOT's involved. But it's just the nature of, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that it should cost that much money, but the bids, we got a very low bid compared to the other ones that came in on this project.
And again, we need to do things to help us with, as I kind of discussed last time, about our base aircraft. In other words, as we have people, those are our peeps. Those are the people in those hangars. They're going to be here. They're going to be buying fuel. They're providing services. And then we also hope to be able to attract other people to build hangars in that same area. So hopefully we can make other private investment occurring in that area as well. Any questions on the ops? All right, so the third handout, I'm going to call it the multicolor handout that I just sent to you. I just handed out to you. Next slide. Charles, got this one? No, it's sleeping.
We have copies up here, Mary.
Yeah. So this is sort of, I was working on trying to pull together, Jonathan requested that we list kind of all the different projects that have been approved over the past few years of what we've been doing out at the airport and where our budget status is. And then Tanya and I worked over the week on determining kind of what some of our costs have been and how much funding we're working our way through. So this is a pretty big summary, but I wanted to at least get things out in front of everybody of what we've been working on here at the airport. So we've had 6 projects approved over the past 3 years. And a handful of them, I'm going to say 4 out of the 5 projects are involved with TxDOT. So in other words, we get substantial funding from TxDOT to be able to work on this project. So I'll be glad to kind of walk you through each one of these. And these have all been worked on over these past few years of trying to get things pushed through. During COVID, most of the capital expenditures were put on hold. We had some issues with the legislature last year, so now we've got this kind of backup of different projects that we'd like to be able to start moving forward. So I'm pretty excited about a bunch of these projects actually coming into fruition, but they're all coming at the same time. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that we've got some things coming in. So I'm just going to kind of walk through each one of these 6 projects, and we can kind of get our ideas and our arms around these different projects and what our requests are. So the first one is what we call our grant match. It's our annual funding that we receive with TxDOT. The city and the county contribute $50,000 or $25,000 each, and then TxDOT puts in another $50,000. So there's $100,000 for routine airport needs at the airport, and just like a boat, things that are on an airport are more expensive than things that we can just buy just because they have airport associated with it. So it's a big help for me to be able to work with our projects and keep our airport in great shape. The second project that we have on this list is this pavement management program. It's a huge project. It's almost a $2 million project. And it was one of the projects that got postponed last year, or the funding got removed last year. So they've got it reinitiated right now. So I had met with TxDOT last week, our TxDOT reps last week, and they've already selected the engineer. So they're working on getting that one moving forward. So if you look on, it's basically our main runway, or runway 1230, that's parallel to Highway 27, and would be completely renovating all the pavement there as well as the ramping. So our contribution, or the city and the county's contribution, is $180,000. TxDOT is $1.8 million. So it's well worth our monies to be able to get something like that taken care of. And the grant is in process. I'm hoping to see the grant documents here summertime of 2022. So that's what's being proposed with the grant. Now, again, I'm going to kind of caveat where that funding is. I had to laugh because the grant estimate of that $1.8 million was made pre-COVID, but it's still being carried along like nothing happened. So I've just added this kind of CPI factor on it just to be able to say, hey, look, we know that the numbers that TxDOT has in the books might be more once they actually get out there. So I'm asking for additional 13% for our contribution so that we can make sure if and when the scope increases, which is like a $200,000 increase for TxDOT, we've got at least an additional $20,000 to be able to support more scope once we get the scope definition put together. So that's me just making sure we have a little bit of contingency in the project for next year. The next project here is the Horseshoe building improvements. Again, we've been talking about the Horseshoe for an awful long time. That is funded by just the city EIC, and the county. Again, we've got 2 interested parties right now, and I'm hoping to meet with one of them here pretty soon. And we hope to be able to get that thing going, hopefully in the spring of 2023. Again, you all have contributed and made an application for $550,000. We spent about $65,000. We demoed a building, they've done some plans. Again, we're asking to roll over the remaining amount, and then again add a factor in there because my cost estimates are pre-COVID. I haven't prepared new cost estimates after COVID. Again, just requesting an additional funding for that for next year. Then the next project is this airport planning study. We were pretty excited about getting a planning study started next year. It is now on the TxDOT schedule for 2023. Our contribution, city-county contribution is $25,000. TxDOT is $225,000. So again, they're doing the armchair lifting of a lot of the work for this airport planning study, which will help us in the future. This box hangar site work, again, this is adjacent to the hangar project. This is just hopefully be able to find people that might want to build. I'm hoping one of the two interested parties that are looking at the Horseshoe, if we get one at the Horseshoe and I get one at the box hangars, and I can take care of two, or I got a hangar list with 30 people's name on it. Hopefully I can leverage the work that we're doing on the row hangar project and get one of those guys off of my hangar list and be able to have them build a hangar themselves. So again, that's leveraging some of the existing money that we're paying for that. Again, that one, we're going to spend what we have and hopefully be able to get out there and get some pads put out there for our future tenants. The next project is the Crosswind runway overlay. We've got, this is a project that's between the city of Kerrville and the county. The engineer has been selected. We've done some geotechnical work out there right now. Our scope definition is underway, and if all holds well in it, we have a hot, dry summer. We'll be out there this summer with the asphalt, getting that Crosswind runway done. So again, all these projects are finally working their way in and pulling together on there. So that's between the city and the county exclusively. And then the last is the hangar project, which is what we just talked about, is the $600,000 from TxDOT, the city and the county at $300,000, the airport contributing $300,000, and again, this is construction contract pending, which is due to the interlocal, and then hopefully timing would be able to start in 2022. So a handful of these projects we are kind of working with TxDOT a lot on, and you can see some of the big numbers that we have next door on the far column. The last two columns would be the fiscal year 2023 contribution from the city and county, which included the bit of the CPI for some of the projects that have been pre-COVID, and then FY 2023 is the TxDOT and airport share of funding that we would be working on these capital projects. Any questions on the capital projects that have been previously approved?
Well, for the public, I think it's worth noting that the county portion is about 18% of all that.
Then the proposed projects for 2023 is, again, continuing and doing improvements at our Brinkman hangar, and that would be a new roof at the Brinkman hangar. We have some areas in the hangar or the airport where we have some water pressure issues. We'd like to make sure we get some studies done and some flow tests done, and maybe some improvements that we can do simply on the water pressure study. And then the last one is another TxDOT project where it's an important study for us to determine some of our issues that's right there at the corner of Almley Road and the fence and the end of our runway. Again, it's a $60,000 donation or request for the city and the county, and then the TxDOT would be doing $500,000 worth of engineering works and studies on that. Again, leveraging the TxDOT availability of funds for us to help out on some of our airport issues that we've identified. So the share of the total capital of all the projects, all the existing projects that have been approved, the new proposed project is over about $5.4 million. TxDOT would be funding $3.1 million of that. The airport would be funding $300,000 of that, and then the city and the county would be $972,000, which is about 18% of the total parts and pieces. So that's our proposed addendum of capital projects for y'all's consideration.
Mayor, what is the total of the new projects?
$260,000 is our proposed contribution.
But is that half of that's the county?
Yeah, and that's half again,
So
so
it's
70,
130,000.
yeah, $130,000 for this project, so, yeah.
I'd like to point out the trend that's happened in the last 10
You're
years.
just talking, you need to get up there.
Sorry. I'll be brief. I just like to point out the trend last 10 years. 10 years ago, we were burning $450,000 a year in red, and now we're in black. And because the assistance from people like Tanya says, since we're a government entity, we need to spend down some of our funds. And I'm from the corporate world, where I think 6 months fund should have been out of government 25%, and you all have our backs also. So we've been spending that. We spent several $100,000 of our own money on Brickman, and we spent $300,000 on these projects. And that's because we have the money, we're getting the money, and the trend is going in the right direction. We are running like a business, and we're getting more money. We look really hard at our leases, and we were leases. We're streamlining those to make our overhead less. We're coming to the current times in technology, how to do this right, and how to make the timing right, and how to stay on board with the CPI correctly. And that's a lot of our income right there for operations. So our operations, we don't ask for a nickel from anybody for operations. We're just asking to improve. To get to the point we're in the black, there's a lot of maintenance neglect. That's why we're running now for the break hang. There's a lot of neglect. Runways, hangars, things that should have been done the last 10 years have not been. So we're trying to catch up, and then hopefully it'll look even brighter in the future. Mary's way leading the charge did a great job.
I guess we accept the budget. 'Cause
Yeah,
at
we
this
just
point, it gets improved when it's incorporated into our final budget.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we accept the budget that's presented and
I'll second
Got a motion and a second to accept the budget, I guess subject to final approval, we complete the process.
Yeah, integrating with Tanya and with Julie at the city on working on all these pieces, parts and pieces together. So we've got some things to do.
Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Let's take a, what is that, about an 8-minute break, and be back here at 10:30 on that. Come back to order. The item that we passed until after the break is item 1.8, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the amended interlocal agreement with the Kerr County Airport Joint Airport Board.
Apologize for getting this so late, but it's been going back and forth between the city attorney and county attorney, Tanya and Julie Barron sitting, trying to get details worked out. I think we just go through it line by line. The changes are very, very minor. Big good things, but they're very, very important. Page 3. We added a provision, it's number 6 at the top of the page. This is a new provision. The board, through written invitations to the county judge and city manager, shall invite parties to attend airport board candidate interviews. It's just mainly to keep the city and county a little more involved with exactly who is on the airport board. The next change is on page 4. The very top of it, and the first line, at the end of the first line, there's a comma, and then there's some language that's been added, including the government accounting standards board. Yes. That was added to this provision. 8, right below that, the date was changed from February 28th to January 31st. That's primarily a sample from the city of their budget calendar. On page 5 of 8, there's a provision that we deleted. And at the time of here, I'll read what was deleted. The board adopts Kerr County policies and procedures for the purchase of goods and services and for the accounting of the airport's finances, each in accordance with state law. That was deleted because it's already addressed in another portion, a little bit broader. This was a little bit specific that was causing some problems on our policies, and it was between all the four other people that I mentioned, they felt that it was best to just delete that provision. It's already included. On page 5 of 8 also, under number 4, board budget, the line that starts with 5 years, the word improvements added after approved. So it's an approved project. It used to say approved project, now it says approved improvements with projects and parentheses. And then on page 6 of 8, item C, excess spending, the lower half of that paragraph that's all in caps has been added. It's basically it's much more specific on capital projects. It relates to previously approved projects. Don't have to be reapproved even if they're not done in the budget year that the project starts, as long as they've been approved, unless the scope of the project's changed and funding changes, then it does have to come back to the city and county. And those are the only changes that I'm aware of. They're all, I'd say, they're pretty minor, but they're very important from the standpoint of funding projects, including specifically the road hanging projects. So with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the revised and local agreement.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the revised and local agreement for the Joint Airport Board. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Minor change, but it took about a month to make.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. I apologize for running late, but we're going to take up the 10 o'clock document, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on the request from Center Point ISD to set a public hearing on July 11th, 2022 at 10 a.m. to discuss the closure of the 100 block of Kelly Street during school hours and on regular school days from Monday to Friday, 7:45 a.m. to 3:45 p.m. And CPISD will place barricades up in the mornings and remove them in the afternoon. Dr. Murray.
Thank you, Judge. Commissioners, good morning. I'm happy to say that we're nearing the end of school. Thursday is our last day of school, which I know the kids are ready to go and some of the staff are ready to go. But this is the time of the year that I really gear up for safety and security of our school. We've had a couple incidences this year during a meeting that I had with Mr. Hastings, Ms. Kelly, and Mr. Gibson, is that we had some students that were almost hit. Our current enrollment here at Centerpoint, as of last week, is 546 students. 9 through 12, we had 161 9 through 12th graders. We have 126 through 8th grade, which is our junior high. Our pre-K and our elementary is at 265 with current daily staff of 112 staff members. So at any given day, we have anywhere between 600 and 700 employees, staff, children, parents on our school property. Next slide. The current district is comprised of a little over 923. This is on page 3 of the handout that I gave you, Commissioner Joe. We have a little over 923,000 square feet of school campus, a little over 21.196 acres of property that lead in and around Centerpoint. As you can see on the outline taken from Google with our exterior perimeter, we have a lot of county roads, and a major, farm to market road that come through the center of our property. Next one. According to the 2020 TxDOT study, a little over 1,246 cars, 1,300 cars go by Centerpoint each day. On Kelly Street, it's kind of small on this, but on the handout that I gave you, a little over 178 cars go back and forth on Kelly Street every single day. Next slide. Centerpoint is a big district. Even though we're small in numbers, we have over 31 different 911 addresses comprised of everywhere in our district. So from our band hall to our elementary school is, according to 911, is a different physical location. And with that being said, next slide. The 100 block of Kelly Street, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we've had several kids almost hit on this road this year. This is a county road. It leads from the 200 block of China Street all the way back around to 480. Next slide. This is directly in front of our administration building. The slide on the right is our kids crossing the street. At any given period, we have 8 periods a day starting at 7:50 and out at 3:41 p.m. We have anywhere from 75 to 120 kids crossing this farm to market road every single day. TxDOT has some signs up, they have blinking lights, and they have crosswalk markers. What we've done in Centerpoint, because of last year, we've added additional cones on the state right of way. We've added these, I don't know if you can see them that well, the neon colored stop and the pedestrian walkway signs. If you happen to drive by, every single one of these cones have been ran over and damaged, where I'm going to have to replace a little over probably $1,200 in cones. Our plastic barricades, they're 32 pounds apiece. Those have all been damaged and hit this year. Luckily, the kids are somewhat cognitive, as much as a teenager can be, as they're walking up and down the hill, texting and on their cell phones, but they are learning that they need to watch before they cross the street. Next slide. And Ms. Kelly, she took these pictures for me because these are awesome. So this is just one, this is the view from our administration building looking down the street. Every single period that we have, you see a line of 4 to 5 to 10 cars all backed up at Kelly Street stopping for the kids in the crosswalk. A lot of times we don't have cars that stop and the kids got to move out of the way. But with this amount of traffic on the Farm to Market Road, we have a lot of people turning right on the Kelly Street because you know how people hate to wait. They turn down Kelly Street, and as on the next slide, you'll see this is where they turn. These are kids that are walking up and down the hall, up and down the roadway every single day. We have our ag barn, we have our band hall, we have our art rooms, we have our agricultural science classrooms, all on Kelly Street down below. So next slide. What we're requesting. We're asking the court to approve Centerport ISD to have a public hearing on July 11th to discuss the closure of this roadway. What we want to do, next slide. We would like to, at the school's expense, purchase these barricades just like this with the approval signage and the wording from Kerr County Road and Bridge to close Kelly Street in the 100 block on the south side and on the north side. The barricade would look just like this. Now, we discussed several different options of having a barricade to having a full road closure, but the full road closure would require some type of automatic gate mechanisms because we do have two residents that live on the street. Mr. Daly lives right here in the corner, right here next to this barricade. Next slide. This is the north side of Kelly Street, and there's a residential house right here. There's only two property owners that live on this entire street. Now, we talked up there where the driveway's at, we talked about putting a hard metal gate, but we do have buses that go in and out. We do have deliveries because that is our agricultural area and our bus barn. So this would still allow emergency access to vehicles that need to go around the barricade on both sides of the roadway. Next slide. So this is the entire structure or area that we're looking on Kelly Street to be closed from the north side of the 100 block to the south side, right there where the 200 block begins on Kelly Street. Mr. Hastings, on the next slide. Mr. Hastings gave me a packet of what has been approved in the Commissioner's Court in the past. We have letters that are ready to go out today to all the property owners that live on Kelly Street, which are two. We've already received written letters of approval from them. It's supporting the closure of the project. I've also talked to late last week, I talked to the other ones that live on the 200 block of Kelly Street, and they've also gave us verbal approval, not written, as these two houses have, to go ahead and close the street because of the student safety. We're also having public notice ready to go out on our website and in the Kerrville Daily Times and local newspapers, as required by the court.
Okay.
Actually, I got all my information from Kelly, so all those kudos go to Kelly.
Thank you.
Amazing.
So each morning, this sign would be put out on each end.
Yes, sir. Currently, I'm the one that puts out all the traffic cones on 480. So what we would do is we just move it off to the side of the road, which there's plenty of right on both sides of the road, school property. We can move it on the school property and then move it off school property onto the roadway and block that there. As I mentioned, we talked about the big signs for the big metal gates that we have closed on First Street, but that I think would be more of a hindrance to deliveries because we would have to open those gates every single time. And if we did that, we'd have to put them far enough down where the property owners could drive in and out, and people wouldn't see it until they were already committed to the road, and that would require them to back out onto the Farmer Market Road, which would create a bigger traffic issue for us. So we thought putting the barricades there, the wording, and the notice to the residents. I think it would be good.
And this will eliminate the need to put out the other stuff?
No, sir, because I still need to slow cars down on FM4 about 1350. Because it's
How many cones and different things are you putting out?
I put 9 cones and 4 stop for pedestrian in the walkway because we have a very large walkway, and where we actually need the true crossing over for the students is right in the middle of our driveway. So we've had to move that down without completely re-engineering the roadway through TxDOT, and that would be a big undertaking from TxDOT. This is the best thing. So 9 cones, to answer your question, Commissioner, 9 cones and 4 the large neon stop pedestrians.
I suggest you get the principal out there to help you. He's a pretty spry guy.
Yes, sir.
On First Street, that's closed during the day as well, correct?
Yes, sir. It is. The reason that we close that, Commissioner, is because that is our bus lane, but we have our nurse's office now that is on the high school side, so we have little ones running back and forth. 2 weeks ago, we had the sheriff's department worked a crash at 11:30 at night where somebody hit our gate. So we have enough cameras that when they completely destroyed our very large metal gate, we were able to locate them and they're paying for the damages as we speak. But so we're down now to just traffic cones in that area, and we have people passing those traffic cones even on First Street until we can get that gate fixed.
And on Second Street, is there any the signage?
On
Second
Second.
Street?
No, sir.
There's nothing there?
No, sir, not on Second Street. That's behind the elementary school.
Right. But I'm just saying, my recollection is that there's, because people are trying to avoid the school, they go down Mosty and turn on Second, which increases the traffic speed and quantity on Second Street as well. I mean, it's just another, it's just basically pointing out that it's a problem area. And, but definitely support what you're trying to do here on Kelly Street.
Thank you.
I move for approval of item number 1.12 for the public hearing and frequent ISP request.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve scheduling a public hearing on July 11th, 2022 at 10 a.m. To discuss the closure of the 100 block of Kelly Street to the schoolhouse. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 1.13, which is a public hearing, and I'm going to call the order for the revision of Plaque for the River Valley Ranch Tracks 22 and 23. Is everyone here on behalf of that? There being no one, I'll go ahead and adjourn the public meeting and move on to item 1.14, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to approve a revision of Plaque for River Valley Ranch Tracks 22 and 23. Mitigation.
Thank you, Judge. This proposal adjusts the lot line between track 22 and 23. Track 22R will be 19.31 acres and track 23R will be 18.3 acres. So they're just making a minor adjustment between the lot lines. Both lots will continue to front River Valley Ranch Road, and we just held a public hearing a moment ago when no one spoke. The county engineer requested the court approve a revision of plat for River Valley Ranch Tracks 22 and 23, Volume 6, page 387, Precinct 4.
I move for approval.
Got a motion and a second to approve the final plat approval for River Valley Ranch Tracks 22 and 23. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Item 1.15, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on June the 27th, 2022 for a revision of plat for Falling Waters, lots 102 and 103.
Thank you. This proposal combines lots 102 and 103 into lot 102R, which will end up being 9.61 acres. The road frontage will remain on Steeler Springs Lane. And we're asking that the court set a public hearing. County engineer requests the court set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on June 27, 2022 for a revision of plat for Falling Water lots 102 and 103, Volume 7, pages 75 through 76 is Precinct 3.
Move for approval. Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve setting a public hearing for Falling Water lots 102 and 103 for June 27 at 10 a.m. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Item 1.16, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on June 27, 2022 for revision of plat for RH Ranch Lot Number 9. Mr. Hastings.
This proposal revises part of Lot 9, that's 50.4 acres, 99.5 acres as platted, and Lot 9A will be 25.23 acres, and Lot 9B will be 25.17 acres. Frontage for both lots will remain on Bias Springs Road. County engineer requests the court set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on June 27, 2022 for a revision of plat for RH Ranch Lot 9, Volume 3, page 84, Precinct 4.
I move for approval. Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve setting a public hearing for RH Ranch Lot 9 for June 27 at 10 a.m.
Question. Why wouldn't we revise the whole lot? He says over on the side, it says lot 9 park. Why wouldn't we have a lot?
I think originally they had 99 acres for all of Lot 9, and they don't own all that anymore. I guess there was some kind of a division of the property. I think that division happened prior to our cutoff date, so it's grandfathered. So these folks they're planning what they own.
Right.
But that's a good catch.
Okay, any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Moving on to item 1.17, consider, discuss, take appropriate action for the court to approve a revision plan for Wood Trails Ranch lots 58 and 56A. Charlie Hastings.
This proposal adjusts the lot line between lot 58, it's currently 5.6 acres, and lot 56A, currently 1.96 acres. Lot 58R will be 3.6 acres, and lot 56AR will be 3.96 acres. Road frontage for both lots will remain on Mustang Trail. We held a public hearing on February the 14th, 2022, but at the time, they just weren't 100% ready to bring the final revision of the plat in. This is the final now, but the public hearing was held on that day, nobody spoke. County engineer requests the court approve a revision of the plat for Wood Trails Ranch, lots 58 and 56A, volume 4, page 98, and volume 7, page 300, precinct 4.
I move for approval.
Second. We've got a motion and a second to approve the final approval of the revision plat for Wood Trails Ranch lots 58 and 56A. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Item 1.
I didn't vote for it.
I'm sorry. Let me abstain.
I abstain.
I guess it's 401, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Item 1.18, which is information and discussion for potential subdivision referred to as Mystic Ridge Estates. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. The owner developer is Countless Ventures, Guy Alcorn. This proposal subdivides 537.45 acres between Spur 100 and Cypress Creek Road, adjacent to the city of Kerrville. It proposes 23 lots and 2 roads. Each lot will be greater than 20 acres. Access to the proposed subdivision will be from Spur 100. It is in Kerrville's ETJ, portions of it, and must be approved by both entities. A concept plan meeting was held in the county engineer's office on February 23rd, 2022. This is in 2 precincts, both 2 and 3. Construction plans for the subdivision have been approved by the county engineer. Final plat along with the performance bond for associated construction are expected to follow soon. The county engineer offers this item to the court for information and discussion only, precincts 2 and 3. We anticipate the final plat to be on the next agenda, pursuant to them getting that performance bond.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, let's move on to item 1.19, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to approve the plat for Morris Witt Ranch, tracts 19A and 19B.
This proposal divides tract 19, currently 17.46 acres of Morris Witt Ranch. It's an unrecorded subdivision into 2 lots, and it dedicates additional width for the road easement along Ballsleaf Road. Tract 19A will be 10.64 acres, and tract 19B will be 6.82 acres. Both lots will front Ballsleaf Road. These lots are in the floodplain, and they must meet regulations for development in the floodplain. Tract 19B is at the back end of Ballsleaf Road and will have 60-foot frontage. Flood study was required, and that flood study is indicated on your plat. It has been done. County engineer requests the court approve the plat for Morris Witt Ranch, tract 19A, 19B, D 15-1553, it's precinct 2.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve plat approval for the Morris Witt Ranch lot, tracts 19A and 19B. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.20. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding quotes from Enterprise Fleet Management for vehicles for the engineering department.
Judge, do you mind also calling 121? That's the same request, but it's also for road and bridge.
Also call 1.21, which is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding quotes from Enterprise Fleet Management for vehicles for road and bridge department. Can I help?
I'm gonna let Kelly get to talk.
We had noticed, the sheriff's department had come through with leasing, so we thought we would check that out. I've got some of the year vehicles that I've got over at Road and Bridge. About the oldest one is a pickup. It's a 1995. It's 37 years old, going on 38. The newest truck I have is one of the crew chief's truck, and it's a 2015. Most of the mileage on the supervisor trucks and pickup trucks are anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000 miles on these trucks. So I think a lot of them we've gotten most of the life out of them. So we decided that we would look to see if maybe leasing might be a better way to do it and not have these trucks for so long that by the time that we get ready to get rid of them, they're pretty worn out. So, and my understanding is you've got to place these orders ahead of time. And the GM one is getting ready to close. It's no guarantee that you'll get the amount of vehicles that you're looking for. But after the GM one closes, then I think Dodge and Ford, a few months down the road, then they open theirs up. You may ask for a certain number and you may only get a partial, just because of the supply chain issues and problems. So
I sat in on a couple meetings the other day, one with Charlie and Kelly here with Road and Bridge, but previously I was at the sheriff's office and sat in on that. And I probably should ask to go with the sheriff's agenda item first, because I think he's got a little bit more background on all this and kind of spurred y'all's request. But anyway, they're having trouble getting vehicles, period, everywhere. And boy, if you missed your opportunity to get in on placing orders, well, I think the sheriff can explain a little bit better here in a minute. You're in a bind.
So what we're looking at is, this is for next year's budget.
Right.
If we wait until our budget cycle, it'll be too late to get anything for next year.
That's true.
So we go ahead and order them, and if by some chance they don't get approved in the budget, we just don't take delivery of them.
right.
And we're not held
Absolutely, I was just going to say.
that we placed orders, they have plenty of options to go with these vehicles if we don't want them.
And if they do come in right away?
Well,
They won't.
that chance, but
They won't.
yeah,
Well,
it's not.
We don't have the money in the budget, we just don't approve it.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't accept it.
But if
And
the
we're, again, the key deal is we're not held with our people as are with this. And of course, it all go through the county attorney.
Which, if you want to call the sheriff's item too, we could maybe have a fuller conversation
I think
about
so.
this. And then I have a comment. If you want to go ahead and call that item, I'd like to.
Let's go ahead and add item 1.22, which is to the sheriff's office to update regarding the enterprise fleet management program.
Yeah, I can give you all a pretty good understanding. I want to thank Don and Tammy for coming to the meeting the other day. It's real helpful. So basically where we're at, we deal with them almost daily, enterprise, we definitely weekly for the last year. So to give you a good understanding, we get pursuit vehicles and non-pursuit vehicles. Non-pursuit vehicles are the ones for our criminal investigators. And those where we're having a problem. We did get 8 Tahoes last year, but they were previously ordered even before we entered with Enterprise. Enterprise basically bought them and then released them to us. This year we're doing 8 Tahoes. They'll come in, they should get here at the end of June. We're thinking they'll get to us. But where we're having problems like everybody else is in what we call the non-pursuit vehicles. So to explain that, we, last year we started with Dodge because that was the one the window was open. They canceled that one. So then we went to Ford. We're in that one. We're 289 days as of the meeting we had last week waiting and pending. And what they do, they're pretty smart. They leave it pending because they don't want you to go to the vendor, okay? So you're just sitting here holding out and, you know, we know we're not going to get them, and I can explain that. So what we're doing this week, actually it closes this week, it closes this week for GMs. So, and I'll give you an example of that. So, but we are going to enter to the GM, you know, say 7 vehicles for that. So we're sitting over here with a Ford with 7, and we're going to go with GM with 7. I mean, you know, I don't think the Ford's going to happen, but they are going to give us written notice. I mean, we are not obligated to take any of them from either one of them. Because like I talked to the judge and Jonathan before, you know, I originally had money last year, you know, so these vehicles obviously did nothing but go up. We're saying we're going to get 7. I'm only be able to get 5. I mean, I don't know that number because they're not giving you the pricing either is the problem. And even like Enterprise says, you've never been in this business before where you obligate something, you don't know what it's going to cost, you know. But our part, we don't have to take those. I mean, obviously they're going to go up from 2 years ago. I'll give you a good example. Pursuit vehicles for Chevy opened last Thursday. Okay, this is for city, county, state, federal, school district, constables. It was open 11 hours and closed. Thank God we had a contact, we got our 6 in. We already ordered for next year. Okay, we haven't even got this year. That's just the way the business goes, but we were able to get our order out. I don't know, but 11 hours, that's just unreasonable. So that's kind of where the market's going. We're kind of obligated, but you know, we're not obligated to take the vehicles that they are giving us written notice for that. So, you know, like Doug, we need a 1 ton for him, you know, to pull the trailer and all that stuff. You know, we switched, like I said, we basically went from Dodge to Ford to Chevy, and he's keeping our fingers crossed. But, you know, I'll be happy to answer any other questions. You know, as far as government pricing, that's another thing. That's low on the list. I mean, what we noticed this last year is they're going with King Ranch, they're going with higher end pickups because there's such a demand. They can sell those, but the government, you know, they'll get such a great deal. That's not really a priority because they're not making any money. It's unfortunate, but that's what we have to deal with.
Well, tell us the good news. What's the bad news?
The good news, I got some good news, is these 23 Tahoes are going to be priced compared to 22. There's no jump of that. That's really good. That's about the best news I can give you.
The fact that we've switched them or going, try to use Enterprise, is that helping or hurting us?
Jonathan, at the end of the day, believe me, I share my frustration with them all the time. It's going to work out sometime. It's just we got in right when COVID hit. You know what I mean? Everything would be, we wouldn't be here today had that. I can't tell you the numbers, but they've cut back millions of vehicles, you know, that they've done. But I think once they get back up, it may take a couple years to producing, we'll be fine.
So you still like the Enterprise?
I love it. I love it. I mean, I don't have them here, but I mean, I love it. I think once we get in it, you know, obviously a resale, I mean, I feel we're going to be in pretty good shape, you know, but, you know, we got to get them first to go through them and resell them. But, you know, I think it is going to be a good program. You know, it's just like everything else, we can't get them. And I shared with Don, you know, I didn't put much of a vehicle maintenance fund last year because I'm going to have these Enterprise vehicles, the maintenance is included in them. So that's been a little bit tough to deal with, but, you know, we're just trying to get to them with no problem, you know, when they're going to get here. But that's kind of where we're at on it, but, you know, you got to get in from the beginning.
So going back to Road and Bridge Color, so what you're asking is that to authorize you to order. Is it 3?
No, it's 7 1-ton chassis with the low-profile service bodies, those utility beds that have all the toolboxes on the sides, and 3 1-ton pickups. So a total of 10.
Okay.
She said chances are you probably won't get the 10, but you might get 5 or 6.
And the county attorney has a question or comment?
Yes, so I've been working with the sheriff and we've talked some about some language that they were proposing to modify in their master agreement so that if it wasn't budgeted for the next year. They could cancel even though the agreement says they can't. So I would recommend that the agreements for the programs with Road and Bridge and the Sheriff's Department have the same language that y'all would have to approve at another meeting in the future. And I recommended some non-appropriations clause as well. And I hadn't heard back this morning about that. But I think that both of the master agreements need to be modified in order to protect y'all.
We can get that done.
Tanya was at the meetings as well. Do you have anything to add?
I do not.
So approximately between engineering, road and bridge, and KCSO, how many vehicles are we putting under order?
Charlie's got 2 half-ton
Okay.
trucks. And
2
then
half-ton for engineering.
We've got 10 1-ton, and then
12.
Yeah, you know, we'll rotate Suburban. I mean, Tahoe is every 3 years, but I mean, we're probably like 21. You know, in a 3-year program, then they roll off and we just keep going.
That's 33.
And what's the annual cost on this?
It just varies on the different models. I'd have to look up the Tahoes, 500 or 600 a month
You won't know
now.
until they show up, will you?
yeah, you've got what I gave you on
Well,
1-tons.
what I'm
It's a little
looking
over
at here-
1,000 per vehicle per month.
Say it again?
A little over 1,000
$1,000
per vehicle per
yeah.
month.
I see that.
Yeah.
So,
One is for the regular pickup. There isn't a huge difference, but one is for a regular pickup truck and one is when they order it cabin chassis and incomplete vehicle, and then they put that utility box on it. So
That's
you ordered
your
it,
department,
you order it without it,
that's your department.
yes. Charlie's 2
Mine-
half-ton.
Those are under 1,000, just under 991, 992.
Sheriff, you should know because you've already been doing this. for-
Well, I don't
What's
actually.
your annual expenditure on the leases?
Because we started, let's say my budget for vehicles was $375,000 last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we did is we translated that into leases. You can get a lot of vehicles for that and rotate out. We've only gotten, you know, out of the 21, what, we've gotten probably 9. So still a lot of money in there from last year's
But
budget.
this program had already been initiated when you became sheriff.
No, I put it in when I got in there.
I thought we'd already approved it beforehand.
We had
We
dabbled
talked
with
about
them,
it.
but we didn't have a program like this.
Right, Lieutenant Gage put it
This
together.
Okay.
Thanks.
So you have 9 of them, you're saying then?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
And that's kind of the way, just so you know, I mean, that seems like a lot of cities and counties and stuff are going to that. You know, I did a lot of research and it seems to be the way to go, especially with, you know, maintenance free, it's pretty easy. And then you usually transition them out before that maintenance goes over. So the idea is to never have much maintenance on them unless tires and brakes. But, you know, you may go through a set of tires, you can go through a set of brakes. But like I said, once we get it all going, and I mean, it's rough right now, you know, I think it's gonna be smooth for all of us.
One year we bought a bunch of them and there was a hailstorm. And there were
Yes.
8 or 10 of them or something. Yeah, so we had approved it but not initiated the program prior to the new sheriff. Is that what happened?
No.
I'm trying to remember what happened.
No.
Larry is not the one that brought this to us
No,
originally.
we looked at it and we decided not to do it. First time we looked at it. And that was not, I don't think that was with Enterprise.
It was with Rusty was in office.
Yeah, Rusty.
Yeah, Rusty, the
We looked
one
at it
that
and
was
we
in
decided
there.
not to do it, and then and Enterprise came back with a better program, and we decided to try that.
I think Scott presented it to us initially.
Yeah, Scott Gage is the one that put it together under us. You know, I visited with Rusty here today, and he's not in favor of that. And basically, I'm doing it like a business. It's, you know, it's an item, it's worth some money. You know, we're going to use it and we're going to get rid of it at the same price. You know, that's why I'm dealing with these vehicles that are, you know, basically parked in what we call our graveyards. You know, they're just done, just like she has. You know, they have a life expectancy. And like I said, I think it's going to be really good. And we just, you know, we get rid of them at the right time. You just got to get them first.
So the action on Judge, county attorney is to authorize order 2 unbudgeted items for the engineering department. Is that what we're adding?
Is that what you're asking?
We're asking to get on the list. That's it. We're asking to get on the list in order, and if they will allow, then they'll place those orders.
It's,
Why don't we do one at a time?
The road and bridge is the one that's critical.
But engineering,
They all-
I mean, first one, we looked at, we had 2 engineering and 10 road and bridge. And I'm trying to figure out to authorize them to do this, what we have to authorize.
We're going to place an order.
Authorize them to place an order.
You have to
pending
authorize.
budget approval. Basically.
Yes, but like I said, with the sheriff's vehicles, the salesperson, is that?
Yes, our fleet manager.
He's agreed to put something in writing that modifies the master agreement, a portion of the master agreement, and I think that y'all have to approve that modification, and you can do it at your next meeting to maybe ratify it. We know that this is the understanding between the parties, but it's not on the agenda for today to do it that way, to modify the agreement with Enterprise. And so the part of the agreement that we're talking about commits the county to accept the delivery upon, well, it commits us to paying for them upon the order. And so we're not into that budget yet, but as we sit here, we know if we turn around and say we did not budget it in the next year, they're going to be able to resell it. So they're not going to, like the sheriff said, hold our feet to the fire.
Well, bottom line, we've got a lot of legal work that we're going to have to do to get these contracts straightened out because of this market situation. But what we've got is we have orders that are pending from the sheriff's office that have not been delivered.
Correct.
And more orders to be placed that we don't know if they're going to be delivered or not. And all of this is going to be subject to the revision of these contracts, right?
Yes.
So that we're not liable if we decide not to take the vehicles.
That's right.
For that general effect.
That's right.
But the lawyers will say it much more technical than that, right? So.
Judge, that's exactly right, but I can't tell you the urgency. If they don't place those orders, it's not gonna happen.
I understand.
Okay, I mean,
And so what I said, we'll just take one at a time. Charlie's was the first on the agenda. So why don't I make a motion? If we authorize Charlie to go ahead and place his orders for 2 vehicles for the engineering department, subject to these contract revisions that we're going to negotiate with Enterprise. So we've got a motion and a second for the 2 for the engineering. Any discussion?
So how is it gonna, what are we gonna do?
We're going to authorize him to place the order for the vehicles.
Subject to.
Subject to contract revisions.
See, we're doing a whole bunch, and it's been 2 years now, this. We're gonna bend all the rules. We're going to make everything subject to fear and lack and all this other stuff. And I've not liked it from the first day of it. I don't think it's good practice to get into. We gotta hurry up and do this because so-and-so said so, or because it's not gonna be available tomorrow. Haste makes waste. So I'm just throwing that out there for you. I don't like it. I don't like doing business this way. It's not a good practice to get into, and we've allowed ourselves to be lulled into this over the last 2 years of all this turmoil. So that's my 2 cents worth. I don't like it.
What's the alternative? If we're not on the list, they can't get vehicles, period.
That's what we're being told. Maybe, maybe not. But that's my whole point. You just made my point.
Things change.
Yeah. We can't depend on anything, so we gotta hurry up and try to put our little marker in today, because somebody told me it's not gonna be there. Nobody has a crystal ball. I don't propose to have one either. Not one of us in this room has a crystal ball. I just don't like doing business this way.
I agree, but I don't know what the option is.
Right. I said, I'm just putting my 2 cents out there because I think it's a poor business practice. And we're engaging in it.
And that's why I say, I asked the question, what's our alternative right now?
Well, you're between the dog and the fire plug.
Yeah.
But I don't like it. I'm just,
None of us like it, I don't think.
and I don't think it ought to be presented this way. I mean, don't let I'm trying to give a word of advice. Don't let yourself get lulled into this. Oh, if you don't do it today, it's not going to happen at all. Well, you know, it's like a guy walking from behind the convenience store asking if you wanted to buy a watch. You may think you need a watch, but you don't absolutely have to have a watch today, and you don't absolutely have to have new vehicles today. Not today. Maybe not for a year.
Well, I will tell you this, and this is not a pickup, but I ordered a dump truck. I tried to get it ordered before October 1, and I had to wait till October 1 to order it. When I went to go order it October 1, it went up $6,000. I still don't have the dump truck, and now they're saying it probably, at the earliest, it would be December, and it's going to go up some more. So we will probably end up paying probably $10,000 to $12,000 more for the same truck, and I still don't have it. On the diesel motors, all of the stuff that we gave you, I know this won't make any difference to you, Commissioner Ballou, but we switched to the gas motors from the diesel. Our diesel trucks, because they're getting up in mileage, it's nothing to have a $6,000 to $7,000 repair on those. They have to completely remove the cabs on them to get to stuff. So, you know, we decided we'd go with the 6.2 liter gas motor as opposed to the 6.7 diesel, just because the repairs get so costly in those. So, you know, I don't have an answer either for you. All I know is we're getting to a point that the repairs are coming in more frequently on these trucks because they have so many miles on them. So, I mean, we can keep, you know, pumping money into them, but yeah, I don't have an answer. I'm still waiting for a dump truck that will have taken over a year to get one dump truck. So.
So we've got a motion and a second to approve the engineering department ordering 2 vehicles, subject to the revision of contract, in which we would have no liability if we decided not to take the vehicles. Any other discussion? We appreciate it's bad business practice.
Don't appreciate it, but it is.
Well, I said my piece, that doesn't mean I'm not with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the word. Upset.
Venting.
So, those in favor, raise your hand. All 5, 5-0. Appreciate it. And now we'll go to Road and Bridge. Same motion to approve ordering 10 trucks, subject to contract provision that we have no liability if we decide not to take possession of the vehicle.
Yep.
1 tons. Any discussion?
Did you make the motion?
Yes.
Who made the second?
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. We're in a rock and a hard place. Let's get out of this squeeze as soon as you can. Let's move on to item 1.23. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action. We don't have any action on the sheriff's office, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, just an update.
We'll go to 1.23. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to set a public hearing on June the 13th at 10:30 a.m. to be held in the Commissioner's courtroom for the purpose of presenting the county clerk's annual record archival plan. Ms. Dowdy.
It's just setting the public hearing.
I move for approval.
Got a motion and a second to approve setting the public hearing for the Kerr County Clerk's annual record archival plan for 10:30 on June 13th. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Item 1.24, discussion regarding recording fee for each additional page of the plaque. Ms. Dowdy.
So, are y'all familiar with the listserv with various departments? It's kind of like an email thing, just basically for a specific department. Well, anyway, there's a county clerk listserv, and this discussion came up about the additional pages of a plat where the fees vary between counties. For instance, Williamson County charges $75 per each additional page for a plat, so it's basically multi-page plat. So that was Williamson County, $75. Brazoria is $100 for each additional page, and Bastrop is $50, and Calhoun was $10. So the fee varies. Kerr County is $5, and that really doesn't do much for covering the labor and the storage fee of both paper and electronic storage. And so I would like to let y'all know that on my fee schedule that I plan to present in the next coming weeks for the budget, I plan to present it at $25 per each additional page, and that fee is always paid by the developer, is the way I understand it. So it's just a discussion item. There's no action required today, but I thought maybe y'all might want to discuss an appropriate fee. I feel $25 is reasonable, just again to cover the labor and the storage costs over time.
Okay. Good work.
All right.
Thanks for covering that.
Item 1.25, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to authorize the county judge to enter into negotiations with rite of passage for the lease of the Kerr County Juvenile Facility. We met and went over their proposal. We've got some questions that we'd like to sit down and work with them, especially with regard to insurance and liability, and sort through that. So the county attorney and the chief and I and Beck. And we all, I think we all raise questions about the same issues, and we just need to sit down and work with them, work out some of those things. The other item that we had not addressed in our proposal was to see about whether or not we could actually contract for a limited number of beds for Kerr County. Those are the two things. I don't think there's anything else we were trying to clarify on that, is it? So that's the motion that I make, is that allow us to go sit down with them and try to renegotiate some of the provisions of the RFP. So we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Our previous motion just authorized you to evaluate.
We did an RFP.
Right, but we accepted the RFPs.
And then we accepted them.
And we appointed the committee.
And we reviewed them.
Okay, so we didn't authorize you to negotiate.
That's what happened at the last meeting. There was no authority to negotiate.
Okay.
So this will do that.
This is to give you authority to negotiate.
And what we discovered in reviewing them, I guess I'm the one that actually discovered them. They sent us a proposal, but it had cut and pasted provisions that had come out of other leases. And so there's inconsistency as to who bears what risk and who provides what insurance. We've already gone back to TAC, talked about what's available to us there and what our liabilities would be. This is just trying to get a contract that was put together hastily at the last minute, and it threw in provisions that were inconsistent with other provisions in the leases. So,
is there such a thing as a boilerplate version of this, or is it done all the
I
time?
think that's what we saw. My discussion with the executive director suggested we could solve this pretty quickly. He saw it the way I saw it in terms of layman language, but we're not seeing it in the language of that document. And I think we can get that too.
and we're still very excited about the prospect of this. This is a really good opportunity. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. 1.26, consider, discuss, take appropriate action, surplus items from Kerr County Sheriff's Office. Michelle.
Yes, you have a couple of lists of items that have been asked to be surplused and then destroyed by the Sheriff's Office.
I move for approval. Second.
A motion and a second to approve the surplus items from the sheriff's office as presented. Any discussions?
Just a question, are these in the jail, the TVs?
Yes, yes.
And you're gonna put in new ones, or they don't get TV anymore?
Yeah, no, just new ones. They're no good. They don't work.
Okay.
Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Next item is item 1.27. Consider discuss take appropriate action to accept the bank depository contract with Security State Bank.
I believe you all have the contract from Security State Bank. It just, and Heather has looked it over and has approved it. So I just need you all to approve it, and then the judge to sign it.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the bank depository contract with Security State Bank. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Item 1.28. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the formation of a sexual assault recovery team, SART, pursuant to a Senate bill on another unfunded mandate that I stumbled across that we should have done by the end of last year if we had. Thank God, Brent and I gave me a call and said, where are we on it? Because I'm still in the dark. And of the materials that I was forwarded, we've already started moving up with this thing. And it's going to be probably a half a dozen to maybe as many as a dozen members, some of which will be, there'll be chief administrator, there'll be a prosecutor that involves in sexual assault, lead chief, sheriff, forensic examiners that are all supposed to be part of this. We have to come up with a protocol by the end of this year. So
now those things all exist, but not as a special task force.
That's right.
So this does what?
Makes that task force. And
with all new people, or with the same people?
We're not hiring. This is going to be a collaboration.
And it doesn't have to be all new people. It can be many of the same people that we have already doing similar tasks in the community, but it has to be a separate, a distinct team.
And the people in the community who are trying to do this and contacting me as the county judge, why don't you head this up? Start reading the second one. That seems like we have to.
The Commissioner's Court is tasked with it, yes.
So we're tasked to do it.
So does this fall under the purview of the courts or the sheriff's department? How does that work?
Court.
The Commissioner's Court.
It says Commissioner's Court shall.
And what the...
But I mean, this, so in other words, this is the team that answers to this court as if it were a board.
It's a state task force is what it is.
You have to establish the task force, but what they're looking to do, and which is why I think that Mr. Ives reached out to the county judge, they're looking to create a regional one to use the resources that are already in place and being used.
And there's grant money for this or not?
I'm sure there is grant money somewhere. We haven't looked into that right now. We're just trying to get the people together. But for counties 250,000 in population or greater, they have to have their own SART, the sexual assault response team. For counties smaller than 250,000 population, we can team up with counties adjacent to us, which would give us the option of Kendall, Bandera, Kimball, Gillespie. We put together a multi-county team.
Like what we have with our Indian.
Sure.
Right.
Have they already started with the other counties, or do you have any idea?
I found out about it last week, and I put it on the agenda right away, and you know as much about it right now as I do.
The Hill Country Crisis Council is already, they've already got some good guidance about, and it's sort of a roadmap for implementation of a regional program, so you won't be going at it blindly. They will help guide you through the process and give you, answer questions you have and give you.
We've already got a loose organization called Kerr County Care Coordination Team. And we had a luncheon a month ago or so, and these are professional people, and they're really on top of this. And so what they're looking for now is the governmental organization to bring this thing together and be able to check off to the state that we did what we were told to do.
So I'm confused at the action we take. So we're authorizing this to start? I mean, there's nothing really to approve this bunch of draft documents.
Right.
Well, we got to put together a team, and at this point,
We can authorize you to set up the team?
yeah. Come back with recommendations.
Right.
I mean, we're scrambling, you know.
Okay.
They're contacting me. These people are out there. Sure. They're ready to help. They just need the court to come in and say, okay, we're going to put you take you under our wing, and we're going to be in charge.
You're gonna do that with the help and guidance of our county attorney?
Well,
She's
and
in
our
the
sheriff.
trenches with this stuff, and the sheriff is.
We're going to have the police chief, we're going to have the sheriff, we're going to have somebody from the hospital, we're going to have people that actually do the examinations over at the hospital.
And probably DAs who prosecute these cases.
But they're all, so in other words, all the people that already know how to do this are already doing this. We're just gonna put them together under a little thing that says, and with some stationery that says.
We're going to create a team,
Yeah.
official team,
Yeah, okay.
that we can tell Texas legislature. We,
Right now, there's a network here, and they all know each other.
right.
So we're gonna have a team under which the network, under the auspices of that, the network operates. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Right.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the county judge to develop a team for the sexual assault recovery team and bring the necessary documents back to the court for approval at such time.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this one? Those in favor, raise your hand.
It's a shame it has to be done.
Yeah.
Paul, you waited a long time for this one. 1.29, consider discuss take appropriate action regarding presentation of peace officer's license from Paul Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Judge, Commissioners. As required by the Texas Local Government Code, I'm not going to list all the subchapters and everything else, but I, Paul Gonzalez, Constable Precinct 3, provide to the Commissioners Court of Kerr County, in which I serve, evidence that I've been issued a permanent peace officer's license under Chapter 1701 of the Occupations Code. I've attached my license, which was issued July of 1995, and all required documents, including the law that I'm required to do this for the court.
And I move that we formally accept and acknowledge your license.
Yes, sir. And I'll provide these documents.
Any other discussion? These are formalities that we just have to do. He's got to present it to us and we have to accept it.
Sure. Thank you.
Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay. The approval agenda. Budget amendments.
You have 6 budget amendment requests in front of you. They are all line item transfers. Any questions?
Move for approval. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the budget amendments as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Pay bills.
Invoices for today's consideration amount to $1,537,200.63.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the bill, pay the bills as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Late bills.
Today we do have one invoice for $21,240.
And move for, that we pay the late bill.
Second. Got a motion and a second to pay the late bill. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Auditor reports.
They're not in.
Okay. Monthly reports.
Yes, for April 2022, Justice of the Peace, Precinct 4, Bill Ragsdale, County Auditor, Amy Shelton, County Treasurer, Tracy Sullivan. I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the monthly reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. And court orders.
We have our court orders from our regular meeting. We April 25th, 2022, numbers 39295A to 39315. And then our May 9th, 2022 meeting for 39316 to 39320. And then related to the special meeting on the 16th and 17th. All those are included in here. I did have one minor change. It's on the quarter 39305. This is related to the consulting services of Jill Shackford. I added so we'll read now, approve to authorize the county judge to negotiate with Jill Shackelford for additional services, which was added, an agreeable exit plan from consulting services with Jill Shackelford, as well as the plan to continue without services. So it's added a little bit language of additional services as part of that. As I recall, that change, move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the court orders as presented and the one that was revised. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Information agenda, status reports from department heads. 3.2, status reports from elected officials. 3.3, status reports from liaison commissioners. Okay, with that, before we go into executive session, we have an item on here, 4.1B, which is a potential contract for services with the city of Ingram. That we need to take a unanimous vote to discuss it in executive session because it may affect the terms of the negotiations. So with that, I move that we include on our executive agenda contract negotiations with the city of Ingram. Favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. I had my written opinion from the county attorney. So with that, we're going to adjourn and go into executive session at this time. It is 12:29 and court is back in regular session. Do we have any action items following the executive session?
Yes, we elevate the Jenna Sanchez to interim veteran service officer with a pay grade of 19 and step 2.
I'll second that. And I know this is on YouTube. For those at home that don't know, our regular veteran service officer has been on active duty deployed for the better part of 2 years almost. And Jenna has been the part-time that stepped up and just done a terrific job. In order to be able to get her the compensation that we think is she deserves, we're going to go ahead and make her the interim veteran services officer and give her and put that position at a 19.2 grading step.
Just one other comment, and 19 is what the salary study recommended that position to be.
Correct.
It's not changing, we're going with the salary.
This brings her up to be competitive in the marketplace. And she is certified with Veterans Administration, which is invaluable.
Yes, it is.
Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Being no other business before the court, we are adjourned.